Well, let's stick and kind of pivot back to Hillary again, Hillary Clinton. You wrote a piece for the New Republic. One of the things that the pressure from the left has forced Hillary to do is to actually come up with a Wall Street reform plan. And you wrote about it in New Republic on how it is definitely to the right of Bernie Sanders' plan. So let's dig into that. What does Hillary's Wall Street reform plan get right, and what does it get wrong?
Well, it's a very comprehensive plan, and in some ways it does go further than Bernie in terms of trying to take all of the facets of the financial system and look at them as a whole unit. I mean, Bernie has not been talking about the so-called shadow banking system very much, which is people, firms that are outside the regulatory perimeter, whether it's hedge funds or private equity firms, venture capital, who are lending, who are doing banking activities, but are not covered by banking regulations. So, and Hillary does have a number of elements that address that in some form or another. One element that's missing for her is this firewall between investment and commercial banking through restoring Glass-Steagall in some manner or another. I personally believe that the current financial system is too complex and it's too interconnected. And so anything that severs that connection is to the good. I mean, Lehman Brothers was not an essential part of the financial system, but because it was so connected to every other part of the financial system, when it went down, it brought everybody down with them. You need to sever those connections so that you have stability, for example, on deposit taking, which is the money that we put in banks. You could sever that apart from the investment side, and then you have some stability there so that you don't have this contagion where one problem somewhere cascades out to the entire financial system. So that's something where Hillary isn't really addressing. One of the other things she does is she wants to put in some sort of very minor technical targeted financial transaction tax. That's something that's been talked about a lot on the left, but usually it's talked about as a tax on all trades. Her tax would be targeted at trades that you see a lot of canceled orders for. This is a strategy in high-frequency trading where you sort of bid up the price by putting out millions of orders and then pulling them back. So you bid up the price and then dump it and then take back the orders. She would sort of tax that, which is really problematic because there are probably ways to get around that. It would be a full employment act for compliance officers and lawyers looking for loopholes. You could modify the trades rather than pull them back, and then not be affected by the tax. There are problems with trying to sort of micromanage the market in that way because you can always find a way around that. So, but the biggest issue I think with Hillary's plan and Bernie Sanders' plan and everybody's Wall Street reform plan is who is going to implement it. I mean, we're not probably going to see, as long as the House of Representatives is in Republican control, we're not going to see a whole lot of movement on financial reform. What we are going to see is a change in who enforces the laws currently on the books, which are actually fairly robust, and at least if the regulators want them to be. And so who gets those jobs policing the markets in law enforcement that is actually taking on financial fraud is unbelievably important. And so where do you expect Hillary to be in terms of her personnel, and where do you expect Bernie Sanders or Martin O'Malley or whoever? I think that is the threshold question.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like you and I have talked numerous times on the show. It's not the fact that Eric Holder couldn't, former Attorney General, didn't have the ability to go after Wall Street executives. He did. That there were laws that were clearly broken. He could have done it. It was a choice not to go after them. And now we have we have the Yates memo saying that, oh, we're really going to get you this time. And Hillary builds on that. Oh yeah, if you break the law, we're really going to go after them. It's like, okay, you can say that all you want, but even Obama said, well, if Wall Street breaks the law, we're gonna make them pay, and he never did. So it really is about having an attorney general and a regulatory committee that really does actually go after these people. It's like, sure, there can be some new laws added to make it easier to go after them, but it really mostly it requires the will to go after them.
Yes, it's definitely ability versus will, and it's also about resources and making sure that you can put a bunch of great people in place, but if you don't give them the tools to actually go forward, then that's a problem. I mean, one thing Hillary does that's pretty good is that she would extend the statute of limitations for financial fraud up to 10 years. Right now it's about 5 years. I mean, by the time we got through, first of all, these cases do take a long time. And number two, by the time we got to the point where the administration was talking, the talk about actually prosecuting financial frauds, all of the statute of limitations had expired. So
imagine that. Gee, they just must have not had a calendar or something. That was just forgot.
Yeah. So if you extend the statutes, you make it harder for that little game to be played, number one. The other thing Hillary does is that she wants to restrict these non-prosecution or deferred prosecution agreements, which have been increasingly used by law enforcement officials. These were things that were originally used for juvenile delinquents, like you don't want to prosecute them, you just want to sort of change their behavior, and so in exchange for agreeing not to prosecute, you monitor them for a while. Now they're being used for corporations and banks, and it's a very strange scenario, but they're being used more and more and more and more, and they obviously aren't providing the deterrent to no longer engage in misdeeds. And so anything that would restrict their use, I think, is probably a good thing.